Um, all right, so welcome to our podcast. We're doing a local food podcast to highlight local farmers like yourself who are selling direct to customer and helping in the way that we're looking at things. The local farmer is the key to stabilizing the food supply chain and giving people the best access to the best food. And I've looked at your Twitter profile, and I think that you fall right in line with that. You've got a really interesting setup going on. So just to start, why don't you introduce us to your farm? I know it from what it says. So if you want to follow Dawson on Twitter, his handle is just Dawson Schrader, and you're a sixth generation uh, farmer on the land you're on right now. Is that right?
Yeah, man. So I think it's Dawson and then a period Schrader.
Oh yeah, Dawson
So,
underscore Schrader.
but
Yep, I'm
yeah,
seeing that
with
now.
sixth gener. Oh, awesome. Okay, sweet. Yeah, sixth generation out here on the land. I'm actually sitting in my grandpa's office right now. So,
Cool.
the old house that my grandpa grew up in is just like a few hundred yards that way, and
Yep.
um, yeah, it's awesome. So. My grandpa grew up, he did the classic thing that um, two generations, three generations grew up doing. He had cows and his mom had a big garden and they had 400 chickens and they'd sell eggs in town and they'd
Hmm.
milk their cows and separate the cream from the milk and take it into the dairy in
Yeah.
town and sell it. And so he grew up around like a pretty diverse agricultural life. And then they farmed about 160 acres, just whatever was the rotation that I guess the government was subsidizing at the time. So
Right.
that eventually just turned into corn and soybeans. So that's what my dad and grandpa were retired from about 5 years ago or 3 years ago was corn and soybeans.
Okay. And then you took
And
over
so
the
at
farm
that
at that
point, we
point.
were, yep. So actually, we just started this year with our regenerative ag stuff. So yeah, we've got about 10 acres of pasture set aside. We have about 100 chickens right now, and we're just direct marketing the meat and then also the eggs
Okay.
once they start laying, and then some duck meat. So yeah, we're doing a slow transition. We've got a little chunk of land here that's been built up over those six generations. And so I've got like 10 acres of test plot.
Right.
And then once we kind of prove that we can, pay for the land and kind of keep up with it, we'll just start, utilizing more and more. So yeah,
Very
yeah,
cool.
man.
Now, on so you spoke about how your grandfather, your father, they kind of chose the crop based on what the government was subsidizing. Very common for a lot of
Yeah,
farmers then and even now still. And it sounds like you're taking a little bit of a very different approach. So talk to me about that.
yeah.
What makes you want to move the farm away from just these, the solo crops or the government subsidized crops into what you're doing now?
Yeah, I guess where it started is where like a lot of people start with this stuff. I found Joel Salatin on YouTube. And I was just trying to figure out like how to make a living on this land. When they retired, they came to me and they're like, "Hey, do you want to keep farming? It'd be awesome if you did want to farm with us. We've got to have more ground that
Yeah.
we're farming in order to make it work." Um, and so I was trying to look for ways like how can we make the land that the Lord has given us to steward actually provide for our families. And so that's
Hmm.
where I kind of started diving into the like polyculture stuff. So,
Hmm.
I've planted an orchard, and then I'm learning. I don't have any ruminants yet, but that's the goal by the end of the year to have some sheep or cows or something to
Right.
start being able to graze
Yeah.
stuff. So that's where it all started was kind of like from an income perspective,
Yep.
being able to like be sustainable in that way where our land is actually providing a living,
Hmm.
which, you'd think that's pretty standard, but I don't think it is. So,
Well,
um,
it's interesting you say
and
that
then,
because
yeah,
about about half of the people that I speak to that are into farming, they're like, I make pennies on the dollar here. I just do it because I love it. So getting it to where it's actually providing a
Really.
living, that can be a challenge in itself.
Yeah. Yeah, we have that's my goal. So I would love kind of like a long-term goal. I'd like to provide salaries for people and allow people to come out on the land and actually like make a living and raise a family off the income they make. Um, but short term is to get it to the point where it pays for itself, is profitable, and then can start paying me.
Yeah.
So yeah, our farm's called Still Pastures, and we're just south of Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay.
So
Still
kind of between
pastures.
Lincoln and
Do you
Still
have
Pastures Farm.
do you
Yep.
have a website or can people find you
Yeah.
online?
So yeah, on Instagram, Still Pastures Farm. You can find us on there. So
Okay, I'll make sure
and
to
then
link that.
Facebook, and then yeah, the Instagram's the only thing that's really rolling so far. So the website's in the works, you know how
Yep,
that goes. But
absolutely.
yeah, man, it's awesome. So one
Okay.
thing I found Richard Perkins from regenerative agriculture.
Hmm.
He was a big inspiration. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he talks a lot about Reko rings, and that's how I kind of got the connection made with what you're doing,
Got
was
it.
seeing I saw your Reko ring stuff in your app. I downloaded your
Yep.
app and kind of
Oh, cool.
scrolled through there. Nobody's in my area, obviously, with it, but
Yeah,
yeah,
we
man, it looks
we
pretty
just
sweet what you're doing
launched.
too. So
Thank you. Yeah, we just launched the app about 2 weeks ago. We spent the last 12, 15 months working hand in hand with farmers and Rico Rings, building a software that is truly tailored to the direct to customer farmers' needs. We've spoken with probably over 100 different farmers now, and from all different types of models: CSA farms, food co-ops, Rico Rings, farm stand, all the different ways that farmers are selling direct to
nice.
customer. And there, as far as I've seen, based on the people I've spoken with, there hasn't been anyone that's satisfied with current offerings on the market. So we hope to change that, because from a customer's perspective, so I only live on a small, not even a quarter of an acre where I'm at. So my wife and I are working on growing some small stuff. We can't grow a lot. So, but we do like
Right,
to buy
yeah.
local. And from a customer's perspective, it's extraordinarily difficult to find local farms selling local food. It's not that they don't exist, it's that the current methods that you use to find, if you're searching on Google or wherever else, it's so crowded. And get this, Dawson. So if you type in local produce near me, your number one search result is going to be Walmart, number two, Kroger's, Costco, because they sell produce and they have huge budgets to spend on SEO and PPC. So they're going to show up. And then there should be 5 or 10 local farms that show up that just don't show up because they can't compete with these huge budgets.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
Something I wanted to ask you about making that transition. So you're the first generations that's been transitioning. I love what you said, where you said the stewardship of the land. And I think that's such a
Hmm.
beautiful way to look at it, as being a steward. So I want you to delve into that a little bit more. Number one, what you consider, what you mean when you say being a steward, but also how did you transition? Like, what's the process of transitioning the farm from these monocrop government subsidized farms into a regenerative, more sustainable farm like you've got going now?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, the Lord's blessed us in the past, quite quite a bit. Like my when my family was doing the monocrop stuff, there, it worked out, and you know, it was good. But at this point, we're just like we're renting the land we have out to another
Okay.
farmer, who pays like a yearly rent per acre, and then he farms it. And so we're not like we're not doing crop sharing or any of that stuff. So the process of, I guess I'll start with what is stewardship. I really see that as like taking care of what the Lord has given us, but then also not just like hiding it away and like keeping it for ourselves and hoping it lasts for another generation or
Right.
whatever.
Don't hide it under
Um,
the bushel.
right, right, yeah, exactly. But actually going out and investing it and like, okay, how do we make this profitable? But not only that, how do we make it sustainable, like long term? So I don't just use up all the profit in my generation and then my kids or my kids' kids are going, hey, what happened to the store? Like, grandpa talks about how the soil used to be 18
Right.
inches thick or whatever. That's what everyone says. But right now you can take a shovel into our soil, dig down, pop it up, and it's like cottage cheese under there.
Hmm.
Because my family's been doing no-till, for 30 years. So we have some decent organic matter, but it could just so easily just get eroded away. So that's
Yeah.
what I see stewardship as taking what the Lord's given us, not only protecting it, but investing it and growing it and trying to, we've got about 40, 50 acres of woods on the property. So
Okay.
managing those, not just letting them, when the wind comes and blows them down, whatever, actually like helping them along, controlling some of the invasive species that blow in on the winds and
Yeah.
things like that. So,
Have you read, there's a fascinating piece by, I think it's Dale Carnegie, it might be Andrew Carnegie, called The Gospel of Wealth. Have you read that?
no, I haven't.
It's fascinating. So, and I think it was Andrew Carnegie. He's like a steel baron or one of the first American billionaires or something like that. And in there, he said something that's very similar to what you said. He's like, look, when God blesses you with money, it's not just so you can take it and hoard it or hide it, and I think he references Jesus gives the parable of the talents, and the one who
Yeah.
took the talent away and just hid it so it wouldn't be lost gets
Yeah.
reprimanded. But what Andrew Carnegie, let me make sure I'm referencing the right person here. The Gospel of Wealth. Yeah, so if you go to carnegie.org, you can find it's Andrew Carnegie,
Okay.
and it's just a little essay by him. You can get a PDF copy of it for free, but he basically says, he's like, God has given us stewardship over money because he wants us to use it to bless other people and to help other people, whether it's generationally in your own family or otherwise. And he puts forth this very interesting philosophy that basically says, if you do good with what God has given you, with what the Lord has given you, then you're going to get more because the Lord knows he can trust you. Like, of course, take care of yourself and make sure you've got enough to be comfortable and happy. And
Hmm.
but his thing is very interesting because he spent most of his life becoming a billionaire, and he says he spent the first half of his life collecting as much money as possible and the second half of his life trying to give it all away. And this idea of just let's get the wealth out there to where it can help people, which I thought was I thought it was very in tune with what you said over this stewardship and making sure it's there for your children and your grandchildren, on and on down the lines. um but you're not just a farmer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to think
Oh,
about like, no, no. So yeah, I guess like the process of transition to kind of go back. I know I jumped over that, but we're just trying to move slowly. So what you're getting to, my day job's actually I'm an insurance agent is
yeah.
what I do. That's what provides for my family right now. And we've also got a mobile coffee cart that we just launched this last week. So
I saw
we'll
you
take it to
posted that on
weddings and
Twitter.
things
Tell
like
tell
that.
me tell me more about what's the mobile coffee cart.
Yeah, so we had a coffee shop 5 years ago that my dad helped me open in his gas station actually, but it was like
Oh,
third wave,
cool.
like really nice coffee, and we love customer service. That's something we've always loved doing. Coffee is like an awesome way to connect with people. As you know, if you like coffee, it's just like you go into a coffee shop and you can become a repeat customer.
Yeah.
It's just like if people like coffee, which a lot of people do, it's just such an instant connection point to make with people. So we thought we still have the espresso machine. We have a couple friends that were interested in doing something in the community, like going out and meeting people and
Mm-hmm.
spending time, like networking, whatever, doing that kind of stuff. And so we were praying about it and stuff, and we're like, let's just start the coffee cart again. And we're going to actually use it to market our farm a little bit. So we're going to do like, like I said, we're just south of Lincoln. So we've got like 300,000 people that are 15 minutes away. So we're going to invite people down to the farm on like Saturday mornings in the
Yeah.
fall, make them a latte or a cappuccino or
Cool.
whatever, and do a farm tour. Walk around, show
Yeah.
them like, hey, this is what is right now over here. Here's the row crops. That's like 90% of the farm,
Yeah.
and here's what we're gonna do. I have a little pasture I've been calling the Project Pasture, and I planted a bunch of trees. I planted 300 trees about so far on that. It's about 3 acres.
Wow.
in windrows and all sorts of different stuff. I have some pretty awesome like permaculture rows going on. So with apples and plums and that kind of chestnuts and hazelnuts, that kind of stuff
Sounds
going on.
excellent.
So yeah, just like such a contrast. I mean, we don't till our land, so it's not as contrasty as it could be, but
Hmm.
it's a decent amount of contrast. Like right on my parents' driveway, you can look right and left and just see two completely different ideas of agriculture.
Right.
So we're really
Fascinating.
excited to use that as a way to educate people
Yeah.
and
So
connect with people.
so you
So
bring them so you basically the draws, you bring them in, like come share a coffee with us, get a tour of the farm, and then of course that gets
yeah,
more people. They can start to understand, oh, I can buy produce, I can buy apples, I can buy whatever it is you're growing directly from this farm here instead of having to go to the grocery store.
yeah,
So this is one of the biggest pain points for most local farmers is finding it, unless they're already established and they've got a good pipeline, but finding those customers initially. So you've got, I think the espresso idea is phenomenal. What other methods have you been using that you found success with?
yeah. I guess one big thing I mentioned the coffee shop that we had in the past. So we have
Yeah,
a decent local connection with people, not necessarily regenerative agriculture, like uh, purchasers, like people that are doing that on purpose, but
right.
like young people that are kind of they care about organic or they care about what's happening with the ground, and so that's something we've been able to utilize is kind of that customer base we had.
Hmm.
Um, but we're also blessed. My family actually runs a Christian day camp out here at the farm as well.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so it's you know, it's from kindergarten to sixth grade. They come out here and they just spend the day out here. Parents drop them off in the morning, pick them up at night. And
Gotcha.
it's awesome. So they hear the gospel and they get to play in the woods and there's a lot of different activities, a pool and, you know, bounce houses, all that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, so there's about 150 cars a week that come down our driveway from Lincoln. So that's
Okay.
a unique competitive advantage we have as far as like a way to advertise. We can show people what we're doing and they can
Right.
just see it and drive past it every day. And so that's something we're going to utilize. We're staying in line with their mission as far as like being a place, they're a place to belong, a place to become.
Hmm.
And so just like staying in line with that, just welcoming people out here to see what we're doing and having it be like a comfortable place. And that's where Still Pastures, the name came from, is we want it to be a place that people can come out and like be still and kind of enjoy what we have, but also
Hmm.
we want to share that with the community. So
Cool.
yeah, that gets to kind of like our immediate goal. We have I have a desire to connect, like you, connect farmers with the customers.
Right.
That's something like, I can post on social media and do reels or whatever, put a
Yeah.
sign on the road or what. I just don't have. I mean, I got 100 chickens. That's not really enough to really market. But I could connect other local farmers. So that's one of our short term goals is to set up like a farm stand. Um, I know you did talk to Jake Wolke about his like butchery.
Yeah, we're
So
actually we're on for I think late next week is we're gonna be on doing a podcast with him.
yeah, so he's super inspiring.
Yeah.
I saw what he's doing. Obviously, there's a lot of different people that do like a honor system farm stand. There's actually one here in Nebraska that's up by Omaha, which
Hmm.
is it's called Perennial Homestead. But yeah, that's something we would love to do. Being so close to Lincoln, the farms that are
Right.
2 hours away, if we could have a space where they could, I don't know how it works exactly yet, but provide their product to people and have a place where people could come out and get their product on a pretty regular basis. We would love to do that. So that's something we're still in the planning stages of like,
Yeah.
what kind of building do you put up? How do you like control theft? Jake has some great ideas for that, but
Hmm.
that's something we'd love to do as far as like stewardship or like welcoming people out is actually welcoming other farmers out here as well.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting. So when last week had a call with Thomas Snellman. He's the pioneer of the Reko ring concept, the Reko concept, and everything you read online about Reko rings, the naming of it, it's interesting. It says that it came from the name for fair consumption, which so
Mm,
there's two is it's a Finnish and a Swedish word, and when you shorthand them, it's
mm,
Reko or Reko. But when I was talking to Thomas, he's like, maybe sometimes depending on the context, a better translation might be relationship consumption. This idea that you have a direct relationship with the person you're getting your food from, or the person who's working on your car, or whatever it is, and
mm.
we bring consumption back to this local relationship level, as opposed to this big monolithic mega corporation type of an industry that the pendulum has swung far in favor of over the last couple of decades.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I did listen. I'm like, I think 15, 20 minutes into that podcast. Just, I thought it would be interesting to listen
Yeah.
to, how you interview people. I know you're just starting out, but
Yep.
also to hear his kind of perspective. I've listened to other people on Rico Rings, but I'd never heard him talk, so it's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
he's got a fascinating story. He was, I think he said, one of the first farmers in Finland to convert his farm to an organic farm from
Yeah.
traditional farming. So similar conversion to what you're doing with your farm now. So is your goal to transition into where you're full-time farming, or is this something that will be like on the side while you keep working as insurance or something else? Is something else your dream, or is farming your dream?
Uh, Farming is definitely my dream.
Yeah.
I guess more so my dream is like um caring for what I was saying, caring for what we
Okay.
have out here. I
Right.
have like a deep connection to this land. I don't think it's just from the fact I grew up here since I was 8.
Right.
Um, but I think like the generations, the stories that I hear, the photos
Yeah.
hanging in the different buildings of like what the farm has looked like over the generations. Like, so I really, my desire is to be out here caring for the land,
Got it.
and the farm is like farming is the way to
That's
care
the
for
way to do
soil.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, absolutely. And that also connects me with like something else I really enjoy, which is connecting with people, sharing
Hmm.
stories and hearing their stories. And so, yeah, as long as the Lord keeps opening doors, full-time farming is definitely what I want to do. The coffee cart could turn into a shop. That would be awesome to have a
Right.
on-farm coffee shop.
Right.
That would be so sweet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see what all, there's a lot of different things spinning up. We'll see what doors the Lord opens and closes and that kind of stuff. But yeah, farming, 100%.
All
That
right.
that would be awesome. Yeah.
I love so it was one of my favorite things about local farms is the agritourism side of things, where it's like you're
Oh
not just
yeah.
like it's like come pet the goats, come stay at our coffee shop, come. And one of the farms about a half hour down the road from me, they run an Airbnb out of their farm, so it's like the Airbnb part of the appeal is you get to come stay on the farm, and you got the cows mooing and the chickens clucking and everything else. And if you want, you can just be there to relax, or I think they let them also like participate in the farm work if they want to. So people will pay them to stay in an Airbnb and work on the farm, because it's just such a connective experience that helps
Yeah.
ground people back with, yeah, this is where the food doesn't come from the grocery store. The food comes here from the farm.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's
so
so awesome.
yeah, there's so many different things with it. One thing that I've wanted to ask everyone that comes on the show is, because there's a lot of people out there, as I've worked with farmers and customers of farmers over the last year, that are very interested in this idea of becoming more self-sustainable in their own lives. So you're experienced with farming at this point. What would be your advice to somebody who is thinking about buying a couple acres to start farming, or even just has like a half-acre plot and wants to start growing stuff on it? How do they get started? What's maybe the best way? Like, because I think you did something really smart. You're like, I'm starting with this plot, make sure I can get this one, and then So what's your advice to others that are looking to start?
Yeah, I guess I understand I have a very blessed and unique perspective on this, like growing up out on the farm and then
Hmm.
even having the ability, the land that we actually are converting to pasture, that's most of that land is just grass that's been mowed. So
Okay.
so it's not like a big jump. I'm not having to be like convincing my family, oh yeah, you're not going to collect rent on this for 4 years, but
Right.
it's gonna come. I guess I also have a ton to learn about farming itself. One thing that I have noticed and that our friends have done really well at in town in particular to become more self-sufficient is creating their local food system. So that's something I've been tweeting about, posting about,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm still learning about it. It's something that's just kind of come um, to mind recently a lot. But like you were saying earlier, having actual like relationship consumption, like meeting the people that you're buying your food from and doing that as much as you can. We buy probably 75% of our food from a farmer's market right now, which during the summer when we can, which is
Right.
awesome. And that's something that I think everyone could do and even though you're not being self-sufficient, you're connecting yourself with local economies that are
Well,
way more resilient
yeah,
than,
that's
yeah,
interesting you say that. I want to challenge that a little bit there because
yeah,
this is something, and I've spoken with a couple of people that are very much into the whole like they're very hardcore self-reliance, and
mhm,
my argument to them is humans are not self-reliant as individuals. Like
yeah,
nobody's gonna live a happy life as an individual. You've got your solar and your well and your food and everything else, but it's only you. Like that's not like we survive in communities, so if I'm raising chickens and you're doing cows and we trade back and forth, like that's part of self-reliance is having the relationships in the community to make sure that, if I break my leg, I can count on the fact that Dawson's got my back.
right. Yeah. I think exactly what you said. Instead of like thinking of it as self-sufficiency, thinking of it building a community that's sufficient to support your life and to like that you're all supporting each other. I mean, right
Mm-hmm.
now, when I think of Brenda, my farmer that I buy milk from, I'm not I'm not giving her food, but I'm giving her money so that she
Yep.
can grow her operation. And
Right.
so she's not self-sufficient without me as a customer, and I'm not self-sufficient without her. And
Right.
I don't really have the goal of being like, oh, the world can shut down and I can just close my fences and just
Yeah.
buckle down and never see anyone again and live. I'd love to be a place where people feel like connected to their food and to their community and build that resilience. Something one of our really good friends, the people we're doing the coffee cart with, their mom just bought the house right next to them. So now they live in town. They've
Mm-hmm.
just got two lots, probably like what you live on, two little quarter-acre lots. And they like connected the two backyards.
Oh,
So now they
cool.
have a huge garden space. They're
Right.
they're awesome at that. That's something I just think like, if you're really trying to form a community that you can rely on, and you were thinking
Mm-hmm.
like in town is kind of your perspective and your place, um, what a blessing it would be if you could move close to friends or open like a community garden, something like that, where you can start making connections with people.
Yeah.
And gardening, I think a lot of that is just like learning more so than actually like, hey, I'm going to plant a garden and grow all of my food.
Right.
Just like understanding what goes into food, how to build soil, how to grow things is such a, not only for us, but for our kids as we have kids and for our communities. That's way more important than just self-sufficiency for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So what So imagine there's someone like myself on a quarter acre plot, or even so like
Yeah, yeah.
urban farming has become a thing. Well, let's say you're in an apartment building. So with your knowledge as a farmer now, somebody that's in an apartment and they say, I can't do much, but I want to grow something, whether it's a tomato plant in an indoor planter or some potato. I've seen some people do potatoes in like a 5 gallon bucket. What do you think for that kind of situation? What's a trick you would tell someone like this is a way you could easily at least grow something?
Yeah, I think you hit, I mean, obviously tomatoes, that's
Yeah.
fun. There's so much to like nerd out on every plant, but like tomatoes, you could get into grafting. You could do all sorts of really fun stuff with tomatoes that if you're doing it on a small scale, that is actually something that you have like it's a benefit for you is you can really, if you're interested in it, focus in on it. Like let's grow let's graft a certain root stock that we grew from seed to a certain fruit, and we're gonna have grafted tomatoes. That's super nerdy, but that's awesome. And then
Yep.
you can learn things that give you deeper knowledge than, and like I said, I think that's a big thing about growing a garden, getting the knowledge of how things work. So that's what I'd start out with. I did actually live
Yeah.
in an apartment before I moved out here, and we had like a 10 square foot patio space. And I talked to my landlord and I dug out of the hill. I took out this big like trumpet vine that was just overgrown and demolishing
Yeah.
everything. And I dug out, put a little retaining wall in there and a garden box. And then I could grow
Really?
like 6 tomato plants there. So
Check
yeah,
it out.
I mean, if you have something like that, don't hesitate to ask and tell the landlord like, hey, I'm gonna be improving this. Like, here's
Hmm.
what it looks like right now. Imagine if there's a big patio here, it's 100
Right.
square feet and you can actually sit and enjoy, like, I won't be here forever, but you can market this whenever I move out. And then that gave us the opportunity to grow a bunch more stuff.
I
So
love that. That's such a creative way to think about it. I'm sitting here thinking like, oh yeah, put like a 5 gallon bucket in mine. You're like, no, I talked to the landlord, and because every apartment building, they're going to have a decent bit
oh
of
yeah.
property around that they're probably just watering grass and other plants that are non-food producing. So you could carve out again, go get their permission if you, but you carve out a little area, plant a little garden there, and you don't even have to buy the land. You just get a nice little place where you've put in your work. And I read the other day someone did this. I think I was reading a Reddit post in some farming Reddit group, and they noticed there was like a big, like a 5 acre area right in the middle of their residential community that the builders hadn't built on yet. So they called up the builders. They're like, hey, when are you going to build over here? And they're like, probably 3-4 years from now. So they asked them if they could plant a community garden in there. And so they've got this huge 5 acre plot now with a
Yeah,
community
that's
garden.
awesome.
Eventually all of the surrounding neighbors would all come in and start, they'd have a day, like everyone would help with the weeding and everyone would help with the planting and the harvesting, and anyone that wanted food could just go and get it. And it didn't cost them, they didn't have to spend any money on land because it was just land that was sitting doing nothing, unproductive land, waiting for the builder to come in and throw up another single family housing unit or what have you.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. If you really want to grow stuff, go talk to whoever's in charge. I think like that's what everyone does. On some people do it on a really big scale and some people do it on a small scale, But I mean, to your perspective also, you can grow a ton of stuff on a balcony. I know that. That's true
Hmm.
too. We have friends that grow tomato plants on their apartment balcony.
Yeah.
And then we have one friend that actually my cousin, he really loves hot peppers. So he'll get like the hottest pepper ever, and that's like all he does. He just cares for
He
like
just has
one,
his
one super hot whatever ghost
right.
pepper plant.
Ghost
I don't know
pepper,
what it is,
jalapeno,
but
whoever. Yeah.
and that's his thing. So yeah,
Oh,
there's opportunity there, but if you also could get plugged in with the local farm, like what you're talking about, that place that's not too far away. I'm sure
hmm.
there's a lot of farms out there that would be very happy to have the help. So,
Right.
especially if you're like, hey, I just want to get my hands dirty. Let me know when you're planting. Let me know when you're tearing the gardens apart and moving from one season to the next. If you have that desire to get out there, I'm sure there's places that would love to have you.
Yeah. Have you heard of I think it's called a mook, MOOC?
No,
So
what is that?
I don't let me make sure. No, it's not a MOOC. Hang on, I'm thinking of the wrong thing. A MOOC is an online course. All right, I'm blanking on the name. It's something like MOOC, but basically what would happen is these farms would offer courses to like high school or college kids where for the whole summer they could live on the farm and eat on the farm for free. So they live there and eat there for free, and they just work as a farm hand. So they get to develop whatever farm skills they want, and don't have to worry about paying any. I mean, they pay their airfare to get out there, but that's about it, right? They've got food, they've got
Sure.
shelter, and then they're learning a new skill. And it turned into this multinational thing where, and I'll have to see if I can remember what it's called, but for it's kind of like couch surfing, but at farmers places,
Really?
and it turned into a tourism industry because then farms in India and in Europe and all Australia would all start posting on these websites. And so if you just wanted to be a bum and travel around for a year, not making any money, but also not having to spend money, you go work on a farm in Australia for 2 months, and you hop over to India for 3 months. Then you're over in the in the UK somewhere, and then you're back in the US, and you get to learn all these skills and meet the farmers and just travel around that way. I'll see if I can remember the thing, and I'll post it in the video link if I remember it. But lots of ways to connect with farmers. That's for sure.
That's awesome. I mean, if I was a single man, I would be, let's go.
Right?
That'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
For
Absolutely.
sure.
So we're coming just about up on time here, Dawson. The last thing I wanted to ask you, because I love finding overlap between whatever field of work that people are in. There's always ideas or lessons that can be extrapolated out of that and applied across anything.
Hmm.
So your experience farming, talk about what are some of the big takeaways from that you say, this has made me a better man, this has made me a better human being, this is what farming's taught me.
Wow, big question. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is like a pretty recent experience, as most things are when you get asked a question like that, I guess. We recently butchered our ducks for the first time. I don't know
Yeah,
if you've ever done that.
I haven't.
Um, but that was my first time, like, raising something. I knew the whole time I was raising it for meat, it
Yep.
wasn't a surprise. But then actually, like, um, taking its life and then processing it and um, providing food for my family in that way. And I guess it's not like a huge life lesson or something that you can apply to maybe a different job you have, but it did give me a different perspective on like where food comes from. I grew up on a farm. We did corn and soybeans.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I had that experience.
Right.
Um, my grandma on my mom's side would butcher chickens, but I was never there for it, and I never actually had the experience of raising the animal myself.
Hmm.
And so I guess like that's something that I've learned recently and just has changed my perspective on food in general is like, yeah, that's a lot of work and time. And then um, it is an animal's life that you're converting into energy for your family and sustaining your family. And I
Yeah.
think that animal products are like essential for us to live and very good for us. And I
Yep.
love to eat them. And that was just a perspective changer. So yeah, but
Yeah.
definitely still eating meat. It just gave me a healthy perspective, I think. So,
Right. Gives you a little more perspective on I think it goes right back to the word of stewardship. I'll bet you didn't waste hardly
yeah,
anything in that butchering
no,
process.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Back to stewardship. And that's something I think from my experience with like um, the coffee cart has given me a perspective with the farm of just like focusing on what people want and then giving the customer what they need and then also that community aspect. Something that farms, I think a lot of farmers have a hard time with, but if you have that desire to build community, you can help out. You can help other farmers. You can also help your customers by building that sustainable, like, um, you know, community agriculture type thing.
Right.
Community, I forget, relationship consumption. That's
Relationship
awesome. I'm
consumption.
gonna
Yeah.
remember that. That's
Cool.
awesome.
Okay.
So
Well,
yeah,
thanks so much for your time today, Dawson. Really appreciate it. Again, guys, if you want to find Dawson right now, the best place is Instagram, right? If you're looking to buy
yes,
from your
sir.
farm, and then soon you'll have a website up, and I'm guessing it's gonna be stillpastures.com or
Yep, stillpastures.com. Yep,
okay,
you got it.
stillpastures.com. All right. Thank you very much, Dawson.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Good to
Yep,
meet
have a
you. Have a
great
good
day.
day.
Bye-bye.